Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. So we're going to start promptly today because the good Colonel Doody is on at 2, and we don't want to be shot, okay? So we've got to get there in time. So welcome to the CASB session, which is actually a mistake because I've been involved in IT for the last 23 years. I've been involved in over 70 CASB implementations. It's not like trying to subliminally sort of message you here. But I've never met a customer that cares about a vendor. And I've never met a customer that cares about what a vendor calls things. What customers mostly care about is what matters to them. So this is the last time you'll see the word CASB in my presentation. Hopefully, if I haven't managed to take the rest out. So as I said, I've been involved in over 70 implementations of CASB in the last 3 years. But I've also seen an awful lot of failures. And what I wanted to talk to you about is practical lessons, if you like, to achieving better cloud security. The point here is using more cloud, right? So if you think about it, I've been involved in cloud really on and off, really. I was involved in the original ANISA Cloud Security Alliance document in 2010, the second iteration. And cloud, to me, didn't really make much sense. You know, is it a virtual machine in someone else's data center that I can't reboot? But cloud has creepingly got into our cultural psyche. Cloud to my children is the ability to play Fortnite and communicate with people that, thankfully, they'll never actually meet. Cloud to a government worker might be an ability to collaborate better with other government departments, via a chat window, so they don't actually have to meet people and go through all that shenanigans. Cloud to a doctor might be the ability to pass a picture of a heart from one place to another very quickly to save better lives, improve patient outcomes. People are developing an emotional attachment to cloud. And they don't even know it's cloud, right? Who would you let remove the apps on your phone? Right? No, it's my phone. It's my domain, right? I choose them. I'm going to use them. A cloud is just getting stuff done. People don't know. They have an emotional attachment to it. They actually, in some cases, love it. You know, it just feels right. Now, the part of our brain that deals with feeling, the thing when you wake up in the morning or the one you love, or you just can't explain to him or her why you love them, you just do. It's called the Filo Mammalian Cortex. It's right in the center of our brain. But whilst it can understand visual and audio stimulus, it can't say why. It can't talk back to the brain. It just feels right. So if you're trying to stop people from collaborating and stop people from communicating using their choice of cloud application, good luck, because you won't. If you do, play whack-a-mole with it, they'll find another way. So how can you secure it? How can you lower cloud to the point, the risk of cloud to the point where you can use it, or you can approve it? So I was brought up in Yorkshire, in Ilkley, actually. I've been a citizen of the Great North for a long time. Great tradition in the North of culture, of art, of craft. And for hundreds of years, people have been using tools. They've been using their choice of tool to achieve their objective. The whole point is their choice. Giving them the ability to use the tool that's right for the job, but also keeping it clean. And really, in a digital world, where it's a bit glib to say it, but work is more of an activity than a location for many people. It's all about using the choice of tools that the person wants to use and making sure that that's clean enough to be used in the workplace. So, people coming out of university who've had over, according to a recent Gartner report, 14,500 hours online at the age of 21. I mean, wow. And 80% of that is in social interactions with others. They are experts in using their own tools. Employ people to solve problems. Why not allow them to use their tools? Well, mostly it's because of the data and the human behavioral risk of using tools that aren't approved by the business, or the governance requirements of an organization to preserve data. So the challenge we've got really is this whole concept of keeping the walled moat around the castle just doesn't work, right? Most organizations know that data now exists outside of their organization that should really be inside the organization. A lot of organizations just tolerate it, just get it done because the business say they need to do it, and who are the IT department to stop them, or just ignore it. But really, the benefits of cloud, we don't need to sell anymore. We don't need to tell you how it could be more collaborative and more efficient and more effective using online tools. The challenge people have is picking the right tool to secure it. But if you think about it, right, you have two problems fundamentally. You have data. Sensitive data must not exist outside the organization if it's an uncontrolled environment. That's fair enough. It's reasonable. And also behavior. People want to attack you. We're seeing a massive increase, of course, in people attacking cloud applications because that's where the data are. That's why the bank robbers rob banks, right? That's where the money is. So if you think about it like guardrails, I don't know if you guys ever go bowling, right? Sorry about that. It's this slide. I'll go back to the next slide. I'm really bad at bowling. I'm actually really bad at singing as well. I think I'm better off in IT. But I'm really bad at bowling, and if I bowl, I get 30 or 40 points, but if I bring a child, I get to use these things, which is awesome, because it means I can pretend that I'm a bowler, and I get 100 points. But what you should think about when you're deciding what tool is the right one to protect cloud applications is about guardrails. Guardrails for the cloud. Simple, specific controls that you can place to stop that ball going out of control. Now, a typical place it could get out of control, developers wanting to use cloud-based DevOps tools like Jira or Atlassian or GitHub, but putting your data in there to test their applications. That's a very simple guardrail that we can put in place. Another one could be, employees deciding to use personal OneDrive because you've rolled out Office 365. You can't block Office 365, so they might want to upload some data to OneDrive so they can work at home. Very, very simple guardrail to deal with. If you've deployed Salesforce, people forwarding leads to the personal Gmail accounts or downloading large reports. It's data or human behavior. These days, there are very specific guardrails that we can put in place to keep the ball rolling down the middle and just to bounce users back. Because 9 times out of 10, the users aren't actually being malicious. They're just doing things they didn't know was right because they didn't bother reading the acceptable usage policy. Going back, one slide. The problems you have, one is visibility, right? Where is the data or where is it flowing? And a great idea to do that we found is to talk to a user. Say, what in your normal working day do you do? How do you handle data? Is the data on-premise? Where is that data going? What 5 use cases, Mr. User or Mrs. User, would you like to show me that I can maybe protect? That's a good, healthy thing to do. The problem, of course, is the cloud is not necessarily under IT's control, and every vendor who sells this type of technology will tell you there's a factor of 10 to how many cloud applications you think you've got that are sensitive, that could accept data, or what reality is. And then finally, traditional security controls, the sort of stuff that we've been using on premise, so DLP, web gateways, firewalls, AV, that sort of thing, they don't natively extend to the cloud. There is a caveat to this, though. There was the CASB business. Okay, I mentioned it again. Sorry. The CASB technology was founded in 2 locations around the world. There were the West Coast Californian ones, and then there was the Israeli ones. So Netscape, SkyHigh, Bitbus, that sort of people in California, predominantly serving the US market. They wanted visibility into shadow IT, and they were buying visibility into sanctioned cloud applications. Then the Israelis couldn't care less about shadow IT. They just control it, right? So they've developed controls around that. But what we're seeing, is the CASB technologies are starting to embed themselves in existing technologies. So DLP extending into the cloud. Web gateways receiving CASB shadow IT information to better inform decisions whether or not you should allow it, block it, or perhaps control it. And of course, next generation firewall, so you can perhaps least cost route traffic to cloud applications because those cloud applications need to run really fast. So natively, they don't extend, but the market is going in a big direction towards having a consolidated platform. And whenever we talk to customers, we're trying to train our salespeople to not talk about products, but talk about how a consolidated platform could benefit customers. So these are the 5 reasons why people are buying CASB mostly. These are the problems that people are trying to solve. I'm going to go through a couple of examples in all of them, but if you're considering how to allow cloud applications to be used so you can collaborate better, or if you're considering how you can perhaps use cloud storage or a CRM system, consider these things. Instead of looking at what the point controls are, trying to stack rank your risk. Are you concerned about people oversharing? Are you concerned about administrators maybe making a mistake? And so on and so forth. And when you decide to evaluate a technology, it has to flow up into one of these risks. Otherwise, it's pointless. Right? There's 1,000 different directions you can go with CASB, DLP gateways. But if it doesn't matter to the business, I don't know if you've heard of the MIT hype-hope cycle, right? When a technology is initially invented, it tends to get a lot of hype in the market because it can supposedly be disruptive or transformative. And a lot of people buy that product, throw a lot of people at it, and often don't get very far because the business isn't involved. There isn't a relevance to a business problem that they're trying to solve. The problem with hype is it creates unrealistic expectations, too much hope. People assume that the technology will do things that it just isn't suited for, or it might not be yet. But right in the middle of that Venn diagram is value. The idea is that that central bit starts to expand. So focus on the value that can be delivered right now, and we know what value we can deliver, that affects the problems that you may be facing. Let's just talk through those problems. So collaboration, right? Files are big these days. We're seeing a lot of big files that people need to share. We're seeing a lot of extended workplaces, seeing government departments, private sector needing to collaborate better with each other. The problem is, of course, for example, when you create a link on Box, when was the last time that you actually removed that link? The problem is people would add external collaborators, Gmail accounts, Yahoo accounts, whatever, so they can work from home. We live in a world where sharing data is supposed to be a good thing. Sharing is caring, right? So how can we isolate that sharing amongst people without damaging the user experience? Well, where we're working on is looking at the machine learning, the behavioral analytics around the locations. There are some locations that are good, some locations that are bad. But people travel, right? So you must make that work. How can you exclude external users? Now, let me give you an example. One of our customers, we did a shadow IT report for them, where we found 19 file sharing sites available, and being used by people. And it's like, why did you use so many? It's like, well, I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's see who's using them. We found the CISO in the room was using Evernote. They're like, dude, you're using Evernote. You're oversharing data using Evernote. Why? He said, well, we do have Office 365 under an E3 license. The problem is we know where the sensitive data is in the Office 365, but we don't know who's sharing it where. So we had to block it. But that's kind of ignoring the problem that people need to share data, right? So the ignoring that problem created a knock-on consequence that people are just doing it in the wild. So it's always a good idea to have options for your users around sharing data, because if you don't, they will. So administrators, as you make investments in public cloud, and trust me, I know 3 companies in the UK alone that invested more than 250 million on Salesforce alone. AWS is turning over 35 billion a year. There is a massive amount of money going into public cloud. That's where people are making big investments. How do you make appropriate controls around administrators? How do you stop them accidentally making mistakes? Or how do you stop those credentials being stolen? I'll give you an example about an accidental mistake. Statoil in Norway. They operate, Norway is one of the most successful economies in the world. There's lots of hydrocarbons around that area. And they operate, as you can imagine, lots of oil rigs, right? Except one day, in 2017, one of that oil rigs shut down. The reason it shut down was because they outsourced their IT to HCL, actually. No fault of HCL as a company, but they outsourced their IT. And in that contract, they have administrators in the Indian subcontinent, it doesn't matter where they are, who managed virtual machines on oil rigs, who turned them off by mistake. It was just a total accident. Shut down an oil rig, caused a safety incident, that lost pumping could have caused damage to people's lives. And I love the quote from the CIO at Statoil who said, "We're not effing making chocolate here." Yeah? There is a consequence to administrators making mistakes. So these are risks, and these are areas where we can, or the vendors can certainly help, around looking at what people are doing, and if it's too risky, then asking them, are you really the person, is that something you really intended to do? But also being able to have governance around what they've set up. So is somebody who's configured AWS configure it in a way that conforms to AWS CIS standards? Or Office 365, is it conform to best practice according to Cyber Essentials or whatever? So, number 3 is, sorry about the animations, it's an American slide. So it's very easy to control data coming out of an organization. Yeah? Forward proxy, static controls, we can do it day in and day out. The problem is around personal devices, because people have a choice. So being able to say to someone, well, actually, you can use your personal device, but you are only going to get a small fraction of the access to the cloud application that you need. Very simple one would be gain access to Office 365 from a personal device, but only be able to write documents rather than read them. Or gain access to, I don't know, Teams, but only get read access, that sort of thing. So giving people the access they need, because the dirty secret in cloud is, unless you're restricting access via IP address, which means people have to VPN in, any cloud application is accessible to anybody with the right credentials. Anybody, yeah? It's not a good user experience to VPN in to get your email. So reverse proxy is a superb way of doing that. There are challenges around reverse proxy, and we know those. God, excuse me. Right. This is the thing, right? People are finding cloud applications to solve problems. They're finding tools to solve the problem. And if you don't provide things like sharing to them, they will. I'll give you an example. We give free shadow IT reporting into our web gateways and our cloud web security. And again, the guy was like, well, I don't see why I need to upgrade. So, well, let's have a look at the reports. Let's have a look in the category of collaboration. There was 15 people in that organization. It's an oil and gas company that were running through our latest version of our gateway that had this free shadow IT reporting. One person was using WeTransfer. They transferred 100 meg of files that week. The guy who was in the room with me was that person. He was in the IT department. I said, why? I said, well, it's only me. First is defensive, right? It's only me. I know what I was doing. I was sending it to the partner. It was an MSI file for Windows. Well, why did you do it? So, well, email caps out at 30 meg. And then, oh, yeah, well, we kind of don't restrict it for anybody else either. So I was like, what about the other 2,000 people who might be finding that they need to pass a large file from A to B? People find solutions to problems, right? We employ highly paid people to solve problems, and they're using cloud applications to do that. If you don't get control over it, or if you don't get visibility over it, which can lead to control, it could be a challenge. So getting visibility into unsanctioned applications. The other thing is, where does digital transformation come from? Yeah, does it come from the executive at the top who's been to a conference? Or does it come from the middle managers who do what the executive tells them? What about the people? The people who are actually solving the problems. What about them? Why don't we start to harvest the rule breaking that they've done to identify where they've solved problems that the executives didn't know about? It's kind of a different concept, right? Reward them for breaking rules and then put in place a framework for controlling it so that you can lower the behavior and data risk of you doing it. And that's what we're seeing increasingly, where people are looking to their users for inspiration. And if you follow Brian Solis, the digital transformation guru, they all call themselves gurus, so I'm CASB Dave the guru, you'll see that he's got a 6-stage digital transformation plan. It's mainly focused on retail. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye out for John. And stage 2 is pockets of experimentation. People just starting to break the rules. Stage 3 is that experimentation starts to become formal. Shadow IT is stage 2. Applying controls is stage 3. Adopting those innovative cloud applications and putting controls, going through the procurement phase and going through the vendor selection that you normally would do is stage 4 and 5, typically. finally, I'm going to take something from a Bond film that I watched recently. Clouds are the new attack surface. And if you don't realize that now, let me tell you a story. So we sold our CASB to a media company somewhere in Europe. Now, they are a very unsophisticated customer. They, like most customers, couldn't really care less. They just want to protect data and protect their journalists, actually. 1,000 users. And they called me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. All they'd done right is they'd connected the CASB to the Office 365 and just left it. Nothing else. They called me up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they said, Dave, we've got a bit of a problem. Office 365 is showing us nothing, so we think this is a false positive, but one journalist seems to be under attack. So could you please look into it? And I'm like, that's worthy of a log file dump to old Dave and his SE. So we had a look at it. And there were 5 things that were wrong. So we do a combination of machine learning and we do a bit of behavior analytics, and it all adds up to a risk, right? So the first thing was the user normally uses iOS. But on this occasion, Office 365 was accessed from an Android device. Now, it's perfectly reasonable that the journalist had lost their phone and they got a replacement. So it's like a 5% increased risk. Then we saw that Office 365 account was accessed from the Ukraine. Now, it's possible that he lost his phone and went on holiday. Yeah, could be reasonable. That journalist, their Office 365 account then experienced 4 repeated username and password failures. Well, I guess maybe theoretically lost his phone, went on Ukraine, forgot his username and his password. The problem was, the 4th problem was, the 5th one was correct. The password and username was guessed correctly. And by the way, this is from the same IP address in Ukraine. So it's looking really fishy now. Within our system, of course, we correlate. So we correlated that IP address to be one that is a known Russian hacking group operating in, guess where? Yeah, the Ukraine. Without a shadow of a doubt that a Russian national hacking group had attacked somewhere in Europe journalist's account, Office 365 account, and was actively in there right now, live. So within 20 minutes, they could take appropriate action. So whenever I tell that story to people, the last thing I ask is something that was asked in Skyfall, which is, how safe do you feel? Boo-hoo. Right, so finally, I mentioned that the technology is converging. So there's a slide showing our products, DLP extending into the cloud, gateways giving you control over shadow IT or control cloud applications, and CASB in the middle. Come and talk to us if you would like a demo. We've got highly trained sales and technical people that can help you with that. So I've got about 2 minutes for any questions, if anybody has any. I don't bite. I did cough. Well, contact us, talk to us. We're not here to sell you stuff. We're here to talk to you about the problem. So, we are here to sell you, whatever. Anyway, have a nice day. John Dooley's down on the other end, and hopefully we can see you again.